going to be doing is taking a very brief look at what the College Board refers to as historical thinking skills. Sometimes, HTS, if you want to abbreviate, because you know that we love our acronyms here in AP World Modern. Now, officially speaking, if you want to take College Board's word for it, we have 6 historical thinking skills. And you can see that, you have your 6 skills. They're broken up into subcategories. Now understand that for our purposes, we are simply going to take a brief look at each of the skills and how it is that we are going to be addressing or meeting these skills, becoming proficient at these skills throughout the course of this particular class. Now, skill number 1, developments and processes. Identify and explain historical developments and processes. Okay, so that's a fancy way of saying knowing, learning, comprehending the content for AP World History Modern. So whether it's a class lecture or even the video lectures that are posted online, maybe you're using supplementary video resources from that particular document. You're reading your OMSCO text, reading and annotating. There might be things where you conduct personal research, but developments and processes simply refers to whether or not you know the actual material. You need to have that firm groundwork laid for the content of the course. Skill 2, sourcing and situation. Analyze sourcing and situation of primary and secondary sources. Here's where HAP comes into play. And there's an entire separate video about sourcing a document using the process of HAP. Historical context, audience, purpose, point of view. This acronym is what we use to help us address that particular skill. It's a tool that we use to analyze the past. Now, somewhat related to skill number 2 is skill 3, claims and evidence in sources. Analyze arguments in primary and secondary sources. Sourcing and situation really gets into what is it? What's the context? Who's speaking? Why did they do it? What's their perspective? Claims and evidence is about bias. You're detecting bias and you're evaluating the bias that comes in these sources. And you're most likely to see it on stimulus-based multiple choice questions and short answer questions. All right, so with sourcing and situation, you probably are likely to see that on stimulus-based multiple choice questions. But claims and evidence, you'll get it in multiple choice and SAQs. So that's skill 3. So far, we're learning the actual material, we're analyzing the past, and then we're analyzing the arguments that were made in the past. Skill 4, contextualization. Analyze the context of historical events, developments, or processes. This is mainly for LEQs and DBQs, although it might show up on some of the multiple choice questions. We focus on LEQs or long essay questions and document-based questions or DBQs because a full point on each of these assessments refers to how well you can contextualize an argument. What led to the development you're going to talk about? What's going on at the time frame that can provide context, that can provide appropriate background for it? That's all contextualization is. Skill 5, making connections. Historical reasoning processes, analyze patterns and connections between and among historical developments and processes. So here's where perhaps you might have to connect developments from Unit 4, transoceanic interconnections, circa 1450 to 1750, to Unit 5, revolutions, circa 1750 to 1900. There may be multiple choice questions, there are SAQ prompts, and then LEQ and DBQ prompts that will ask you to make connections. So you can see that with all of these, we are building on that initial principle of developments and processes. With skills 4 and 5, it's taken for granted that you know the content. You have to have that firm base before you can move on and demonstrate knowledge of the skills. And finally, argumentation. Develop an argument. We call it a thesis statement. Just like a full point for contextualization is given for LEQs and DBQs, a full point for a thesis is given for an LEQ and a DBQ. So you better believe that is a skill you need to be proficient in. So again, everything that we do in class will have some type of tie-in to the 6 AP historical thinking skills. Developments and processes, sourcing and situation, claims and evidence and sources, contextualization, making connections, and argumentation.